All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis, a morning edition of Unqualified Analysis. I'm a little bit less high-strung from a day of work because there's a hellacious snowstorm outside. So I figured instead of sitting around and twiddling my thumbs this morning like I would be doing otherwise, because your boy's not driving on these roads right now. It's not great, not great. And it is still snowing as I am recording this. So yeah, I figured instead of twiddling my thumbs around, I would do some later work now and just kind of record this thing. And I will leave a space here for any possible firings throughout the day. It is still 10:30 in the morning as I am recording this on Monday. So I'll leave a little space in here for after work just in case more headlines come across. But I think we've got answers on most of the head coaching questions that we had coming into Black Monday. Black Monday did come early for one particular coaching staff, but we'll get to all that here in just a second. This is Unqualified Analysis, obviously. I'm your host, at Caleb V, or just Caleb V, if you want to call me that. You can follow me on the socials, basically just Twitter at CalebVUA. You can find that down in the description. Shoot me a DM, shoot me an email at unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com. And otherwise, subscribe, share, rate this thing, help me grow it. With that said, we're going to start off with a recap here of the NFL week that was. I think you probably know where I'm going to start off. Rough week. Really just a rough Sunday night. A lot of anticipation going into a rough Sunday night. But that being said, I'm going to get a quick swig of this here electrolyte beverage. It's good stuff. That's good stuff right there. Love that. Anyways, I'm going to answer this text, and then we're going to get right into it. I will see y'all in just a second. It'll be just a split second for you all. One moment, please. Alrighty, it is your boy Caleb back here with a little bit more formal attire to correct some mistakes that may have been made. Well, one mistake that was made, just really just informing you of the headlines that happened throughout the day. I did actually go into the office today. Didn't get there till 3 o'clock, but I got in there, damn it. I'll tell you what, man. I showed up, I clocked in, put in a few hours, and you know what? I'm not quite as tired as if I was working a full 8-9 hour day. So, benefits and drawbacks. Did not want that day off, but you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. That being said, real quick here, just gonna pop in before we hop into the meat of the episode here. There was a nice big pause while I was texting a buddy, so figure that was as good a place to put this little what am I even calling this? Intervening clip. I don't know than any, but yeah, these are just the headlines that kind of broke after I was done recording earlier this morning. So let's just get through them here real quick. Like I said, one correction to make first and foremost. The Vikings will be playing the Rams this upcoming week on the road at the Rams, not the Buccaneers, like I said erroneously on several occasions and made a whole long diatribe about earlier on in the episode. I'm going to keep it in because basically everything I said about the Bucs holds true for the Rams. When you listen to it, it'll make a little bit more sense. I would add in the caveat for the Rams. Rams probably scare me more. Well, yeah, I'd say the Rams scare me even more just because they're getting healthy at the right time, and that does really scare me. I think the Bucs have higher highs, but still, the Rams do scare me a lot, especially with that long road trip to get over there. But outside of that, like I said, the analysis that I put out there still stands. So stick around for that. I'm dejected when you listen to it. It's pretty easy to hear. But that being said, a couple head coaching headlines here. So Ryan Grubb, after I just made brief mention of him when talking about the Seattle win on Sunday, he got fired as the offensive coordinator of the Seahawks after 1 year. So I could understand it. There's a little bit of nagging and maddening inconsistency from the offense, both in play calling and success, as a result of play calling, as I would assume the head coach thought, that being Mike McDonald. So now they're looking for an offensive coordinator. We'll see where they go with that. Maybe they go the offensive coordinator from college route again. think Mike McDonald got burned on that once, so he'll probably turn his eyes back to the NFL this time around. That's where he's at now anyways, a little bit more current knowledge on that front, so we'll see how that whole thing goes. That did kind of shock me. I thought they'd at least, excuse me, thought they'd at least stick with Ryan Grubb for more than 1 year, but it is what it is. It is what it is. That'll be an interesting opening to watch. They got some good weapons out there, just offensive line issues. And yeah, we'll talk about that later on in the episode, so just stay tuned for that. Outside of that, looks like Antonio Pierce will be retained after his public comments on Monday. He's talking about going to 2025. No one's told him any different. And by this point, if Mark Davis hasn't, brought him in for that meeting to fire him, it's not happening. They call it Black Monday for a reason, because if you do it after Monday, it gets a little bit awkward. Jerry Jones notwithstanding, he's his own special head case as far as those decisions are concerned. Nothing too dramatic for the Dallas Cowboys, man. They love to stir up some controversy. But yeah, Antonio Pierce looks like he's going to be staying. Mickey Loomis is well on his search for the next head coach for the Saints, so looks like he's staying. That being said, probably a mistake. Yeah, quick update here. I didn't mention it when I was talking about the Bears win over the Packers here, but Christian Watson did tear his ACL and had some other structural damage there against the Bears. So obviously out for the playoffs. I would say that the 2025 season is in jeopardy at this point. I don't know when they're going to get him back based on that injury. It just depends on what the other damage involved is and what the timeline is on that recovery in addition to the ACL recovery. But yeah, all around, that's pretty much your headlines. I would like to bring up one more thing with Ryan Grubb. He was with Kalen DeBoer for years up until he took the job with the Seahawks. I don't know if Kalen DeBoer is all that attached to the offensive coordinator that he has, especially after a bit of an underperforming season this year. We'll see. We'll see if he makes that move. If nothing else, Ryan Grubb is a hot commodity on the offensive coordinator market at the very least for the college level. So that's something to keep an eye on there. Possible Kalen DeBoer reunion loading. That's just, again, something to keep in mind when we look at this whole thing. That being said, that's pretty much it. I will, take it away. Past Caleb, I'm just gonna go ahead and edit this thing and get it uploaded. So enjoy the rest of the episode. Take it away, me from the past and with a little bit less clothing. All right, so let's rip the Band-Aid off here. I did my little text thing, and now we just gotta get right into this thing. So the Vikings went on the road to the Lions on Sunday night, and it was a game for the first, I don't know what we'll call it, the first 3 quarters, essentially. The Lions ended up pulling away in the fourth quarter. It was not close in the fourth quarter. They ended up winning 31-9. Man, as far as a regular season loss goes, I don't know. Since I became an adult and my emotions didn't, swing so frivolously based on the outcome of sports, this is the most disappointed that I have been at a regular season game watching the Vikings. And there's been a lot of disappointments. Let me tell you, there's been a lot of disappointing outcomes for the Vikings here in my lifetime. Based on the stakes, based on the team that the Vikings have, the roster I'm talking about. We'll talk about a little bit deeper breakdown of that roster here in a second. But yeah, just based on what we had, based on everything that was at stake, this loss hurts more than just about any loss that I've ever sustained as a Vikings fan, at least in the regular season. Nothing's gonna come close to that NFC Championship game against the Saints where Brett Favre threw the game away and Derek Hartley just stuck a dagger into my heart. Yeah, nothing's going to come close to that, but as far as the regular season, this is as close as we're going to get on this one. The Vikings are still going to make the playoffs. They're the 5 seed at this point. It was a default. No matter what, whoever won this game was going to be the 1 seed, and whoever lost was going to be the 5 seed. We all knew that coming in. Now you're a 14-3 5 seed. And it's so disappointing to me. Well, first off, before I go in on the Vikings, I do have to give credit to the Lions. They showed up ready to go. They showed up looking like a team that's ready for a championship run in a home environment. They had all those advantages, so good for them there. But with all the talent they're missing on the defensive side of the ball, they held the Vikings to 9 points. Vikings couldn't do anything in the red zone. They didn't score a touchdown in this game. Basically, they were just putting the whole game on the foot of Will Reichert. He missed a field goal, hit the other 3, I want to say, in this one. So not the worst thing in the world, I suppose. But still, you got to score touchdowns, man. And we were just incapable of doing so in the red zone. That's all 100% credit to Aaron Glenn. That's 100%. He came in with the right mindset of just blitzing the hell out of Sam Darnold, live with one-on-one on the outside. I don't care if they got Justin Jefferson. I don't care if they got TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison. We don't believe enough in this quarterback across from us to really be afraid that those guys are in one-on-one, and Aaron Glenn was proven right by that. And Aaron Glenn deserves all the credit in the world for that. He should get a head coaching job this offseason. He is on the short list for a bunch of teams. I think he's getting an interview request at the very least from the Saints. Wouldn't be shocked if the other teams in the mix put in a request for him as well. He should be a head coach. Make no mistake about it. And with what he's been able to do, I mean, really getting Alex Anzalone back was huge for him. I think that's really the biggest difference in this defensive unit in this game. But in the biggest moment possible, throwing out 9 points for the Vikings, that's incredible stuff from Aaron Glenn. And in the Lions, all the credit in the world to the Vikings defense here. They gave up 31, but ultimately the bottom just fell out in the fourth quarter because the offense wasn't doing anything for them, essentially. I mean, Andrew Van Ginkel was an animal in this game. Absolutely unstoppable. No matter where you put him, he almost had a pick 6. He contributed at the very least to the pick that Ivan Pace had that ultimately, I don't even remember if that ended up being a field goal or if it ended up being another one of those not converted 4th downs in 4th and goal. Excuse me. I think it was the latter there. But hey, the defense, this is not their fault. Not their fault whatsoever. I mean, the front 7 played as good as they have all season. I mean, with the exception of a couple big runs by Jahmyr Gibbs, really he did all of his work down in the red zone for the most part. He had 2 big ones, and then otherwise he was bottled up for the most part until, the final stretch when the Vikings defense just wilted because they were gassed. They didn't get any help from the offense at all on Sunday, and those games turn into blowouts. Even if you got a great defense, those games are going to turn into blowouts pretty much. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Lions, though, man, to win a game like this against maybe the second best team in the NFC, maybe third. I don't think they fall farther than third in the NFC right now. To win a game like this, I know it's at home, you got all those advantages, but it's nothing short of absolutely impressive. They're the best team in the NFC in my mind after this result. That just a dominant win. I think Alex Anzalone being back is absolutely huge for them. So 1 seed, well-deserved. They get that first round bye. Looks like based on how they were talking in the broadcast, nothing confirmed, but it feels like they're going to get David Montgomery back in the second round when they play in the divisional round against whoever it happens to be. Hell, it might actually be a rematch considering we're in the 4-5 matchup right now, going on the road to face the Bucs, so fantastic on that front. But yeah, all the credit in the world to the Lions. Jared Goff looked good, 27 of 33, 231, 1 touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs had 4 touchdowns in this game. The Lions looked dominant. They looked like everything that they were purported to be throughout the course of the season. To me, they're obviously the favorite to win the NFC, and I think they will win the NFC when it's all said and done. The Eagles may have something to say about that, but the Jalen Hurts health situation should scare you if you're an Eagles fan because he's spending a lot of time on this concussion protocol. Hopefully this past week was just precautionary, but wouldn't love the spot that I'm in if I was an Eagles fan. But if Jalen Hurts comes back, they're going to give the Lions a run for their money. And I'm spending a lot of time on this one because there's not really a whole lot of games to write home about outside of this. A lot of blowouts. Some good games sprinkled in throughout there, but not a whole lot of good games that mattered. So we're spending a lot of time on this one because it was the one with the highest stakes that had the most to gain or lose, I would say, even though both of these teams were in the playoffs regardless. And I'm gonna look at the Vikings here again. I've given my flowers to the Lions. I love the way that they're constructed. And Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, hats off to you. You did a great job with the team that they've got there. But on the Vikings side of things, man, I'll just lay it out to you like this. I thought if the Vikings won this game, if they got the 1 seed, I thought that they were going to the Super Bowl. Honestly, I really did. And that was incumbent on obviously Sam Darnold being even a semblance of what he's been throughout the course of this year. He went to the Pro Bowl for a reason. He's had a fantastic year, still finishing career highs in like basically every category except for interceptions. So if that happened, if the Vikings won, I would have expected them to go to the Super Bowl. Now with the Vikings in the 5 seed, with what I just saw from Sam Darnold, I'm not even sure we're going to beat the Bucs. I mean, the Bucs are far from a guarantee. One, the Vikings are going on the road to play the Bucs. Yes, it is down in Tampa. Yes, it will be a lot warmer than maybe some other road games in the NFC playoffs might be. But you're on the road at the Bucs. The Bucs are the most volatile team in the entire NFL. On a given Sunday, they could look like a team that should not even be sniffing the playoffs, and then the very next Sunday they could look like the very best team in the NFC. They're one of the 2 teams that beat the Lions this year. People forget, granted that was when they had Chris Godwin, and who knows what would have happened if Chris Godwin would have stayed healthy this season. But it's all by the by now. That game scares the hell out of me because you go on the road there, and hey, sure, you could get the Bucs that have just underperformed the entire season, or just been inconsistent times that they've just lost to bad teams. You could get that Bucs team for sure. You could very easily also get the Bucs team that just reels off 40 on you and they'll win by double digits. You just don't know what you're getting from the Bucs, and that's why it's a frightening, a horrifying game that I was hoping to avoid here in the first round, but it is what it is at this point. You just got to kind of work with what you have. My main takeaway coming out of this game is that we being the Vikings, I'm speaking a lot in the royal we here, but the Vikings cannot sign Sam Darnold to a long-term contract this offseason. I mean, and I'm speaking very definitively. We've not had a playoff run to go off of here, but if what I saw in that Lions game is any indication of what I can expect from Sam Darnold when he's just getting pressure thrown at him left and right all damn day long, and especially when it comes to facing off against good teams in a high-pressure postseason environment, the moment was too big for him, and he did not hold up the pressure at all. I mean, I can take a look at the stats here. I know they were abysmal. I mean, 18 of 41, 4 yards per attempt. I mean, 166 yards in the game. The saving grace is he didn't turn the ball over, but that is literally the only saving grace that he had in this game. He was constantly pressured. He only took a sack twice, but one of those sacks was for like 20 yards, 15, 20 yards essentially, and backed us right up to the end zone. So it was a terrible game from Sam Darnold. I think he ultimately got exposed. I think every team in the playoffs is going to use the exact same game plan that Aaron Glenn just did. It's going to be constant pressure on Sam Darnold, and I honestly, after seeing what I saw last night, I don't believe in Sam Darnold to go out there and play through that pressure and put up big time performances. The Lions even lost Terry and Arnold in this game as well. They were down to like no corners essentially on their roster, and then lo and behold, Sam Darnold's just getting so much pressure on him, and he's been unable to deal with it so badly that it just didn't matter. I mean, you had Justin Jefferson matching up one-on-one with Kindle Vildor, guys like that. I mean, Jordan Addison, same thing. I mean, backup corners, you're matching up against 2 of the best wide receivers in the game. Alex Anzalone did a good job on TJ Hockenson. Got away with a lot of holding in that game, but that's another discussion for another day. I'd be a lot more angry about that if the Vikings didn't get run off the field. Didn't make a whole lot of difference, I would say, whether Alex Anzalone was holding or not when the final score is 31-9. I think there's a few more problems than Alex Anzalone holding if the final score is that, which it was. So I don't know if I've flipped night and day on the Vikings and their playoff hopes or their aspirations. They went 14-3 for a reason. The roster around Sam Darnold is loaded. Make no mistake about it. The defense is fantastic. They give up a lot of yards passing, but even in this one, they got 2 interceptions on Jared Goff. They force a bunch of turnovers every given week, basically. I mean, the Vikings won the turnover battle, lost the game by 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns, 3 2-point conversions, actually. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't the defense's fault in this one. If Sam Darnold can deliver the ball offensively, we would be in business. I mean, every facet of this team outside of the quarterback was really good in this game. Running game, Cam Akers, Aaron Jones, both fairly efficient in this game. Not a whole lot of yards. Still 6.3 yards per carry as a team overall. That's even factoring in the 3 rushes for 10 yards that Sam Darnold had throughout this one. Defensively, like I said, I mean, they forced 2 turnovers. The only thing that you could quibble with is that they let Jahmyr Gibbs break off those 2 runs, but Jahmyr Gibbs is a top 5 running back in the league. I mean, maybe even top 3. He's not as good as Saquon. I'm not going to give him that. But he's right up, I mean, especially Christian McCaffrey, I don't think at this point with the injury situation that we can expect him to be the same player that he has been throughout the course of his career. It feels like the check is coming due on that injury stuff that he's been dealing with throughout the course of his career. Jahmyr Gibbs is, I mean, maybe number 2. Like, right there, right behind what Saquon Barkley is right now. So, I mean, there's no shame in that. I mean, outside of like 2 big runs, didn't really give up a whole lot of yardage to Jahmyr Gibbs. The problem is those 2 big runs were for like a total of over 100 yards, I think. So, the cards were not in our favor, unfortunately. And, Jahmyr Gibbs just went Looney Tunes in this game. 4 touchdowns. 4 touchdowns and 170 yards from scrimmage. He did light us on fire. It is what it is there. Still not the defense's fault. This one falls squarely on Sam Darnold's shoulders. Flat out. And it falls on, I mean, Kevin O'Connell's not getting away with this either. I mean, it felt like when we got down to 4th and goal, I mean, I think that they just failed to convert like 2 or 3 different 4th and goals instead of kicking field goals. And I get it. At some point, you got to start scoring touchdowns. But it felt like the Vikings were playing scared to give the ball back to Detroit instead of playing to win the game and playing to their strengths. And obviously it's easier said than done when your quarterback who's been a Pro Bowler all season is having the worst game of his season so far. But it just felt like Kevin O'Connell, I'm not going to say panicked. Like, I don't think it was necessarily a panicked response, but it wasn't exactly a calm and rational response either. Like, Kevin O'Connell is far from blameless in this whole thing. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how I feel about it. I think the Vikings can win in the first round. Maybe they can make a game of it in the second round whenever they would inevitably play the Detroit Lions again on the road again. But we just saw how that game went this past time. It's going to be an equally huge environment whenever they do face off, if the Vikings do survive against the Bucs, because again, I'm not taking that for granted right now. That is absolutely not something we should take for granted with how the Bucs have performed at times this year, especially at home with a guy like Mike Evans and Bucky Irving for that matter. Maybe the Vikings will be lucky to get the NFC Championship. I'll tell you that right now. I think it'd be great to win a playoff game this year. That's how I feel about it. As far as the future goes, with what I just saw from Sam Darnold, franchise tag him, keep him for another year, or franchise tag him and trade him, because I don't want it. I don't want it. I know. Jesus, not Kevin McCarthy. He's the former Speaker of the House for the House of Representatives there. J.J. McCarthy, notably not a politician. I know he's not a proven commodity at all. There's nothing guaranteed here at all. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure I know who Sam Darnold is. And Sam Darnold is much better than what he was purported to be over the first several years of his career when he got dropped into a shit situation with the Jets, another shit situation with the Panthers, and then, rode the pine with the 49ers. He's better than we thought he was over the last several years. However, he's a guy that's not all too dissimilar than Kirk Cousins, where you need everything to be perfect around him in order to go and win a championship. And it's not something that I necessarily definitively thought throughout the course of this season with how Sam Darnold had been performing. But this performance against the Lions Sunday night, the biggest possible situation, he just wilted like a dying flower. It was a shame to see. It was truly a shame to see, and it has shaken my confidence in this team all the way to the core. So, Vikings, they've got a puncher's chance if nothing else. They were 14-3 for a reason. But I have greatly tempered my expectations for him now, both being in the 5 seed and after what I saw from Sam Darnold. Like, if they'd have just lost close in this game and Sam Darnold still looked good, I would still feel at least somewhat confident that the Vikings would go to the Super Bowl, or at the very least go to the NFC Championship. I can't say I feel that anymore. It's just not... I just don't know if it's in the cards this year. I don't know if we're good enough at the quarterback position right now, and who knows if J.J. McCarthy is a solution, but I don't think you sign Sam Darnold to a long-term contract based on what we just saw from him on Sunday night. Hey, all the hope in the world that he proves me wrong, because that would mean that we made a deep playoff run and he played very, very well. But I don't know. I don't think I am. I think every team that's in the NFC playoffs just saw a blueprint for how to slow down Sam Darnold and how to really stop Sam Darnold. And I think every team that we face, from first round until, if Lord willing, we go to the Super Bowl, I think every team is going to be taking the tack that we just saw the Detroit Lions take on Sunday night. It's not over, but the cards are stacked against us in a way that they weren't a week ago. So, with that said, congratulations to the Lions. Number 1 team in the NFC, number 1 team in the NFL in my mind. Yeah, good luck to you. Yeah, good luck to the Vikings as well, because I know they're going to need it. Anyways, we spent a lot of time on that game, a whole lot of time. So let's get a quick time check here. 20 minutes, that feels adequate. That feels adequate for what we just looked at there. Outside of that, let's just keep it moving. This will be a fairly short episode. I don't think I'm going to do any previews for next week. I think we're gonna lump all of the previews to the Thursday episode. We're talking NFL playoffs. We'll start off with the college football playoff, but it's only 2 games, so we'll do a nice little in-depth, what's the word I'm looking for? In-depth preview of those games. And then I might hand out another extra pick or so. I've already got my 2 picks locked up there in the college ranks. But yeah, then we'll go ahead and preview the first round of the NFL playoffs. So yeah, we're just going to roll through these games real quick. We'll take them chronologically because there's not really another game that stuck out outside of that Vikings-Lions disappointment on Sunday night. So the Ravens beat the hell out of the Browns, 35-10. The Browns are, what are they, the number 2, number 3 pick at this point? There's a lot of really fucking bad teams, so I don't know the draft order off the top of my head, but they are a top 5 pick. They are right there securely at number 1. I can't remember. I think the Titans ended up being the number 1 overall pick. I want to say the Titans are the number 1 overall pick, but the Browns are like right there in there behind them, I want to say. Actually, no. We'll circle back around to that. I do not know the draft order at all. In fact, let's just let's get a quick little gander at what the draft order actually is. We go teams. That's looking at that's the 2024 draft order. We need a 2025 draft order is what we need. Give me just one moment. Give me just one moment. So 2025 NFL draft order. Sorry, nose is a little bit runny. It's pretty cold here right now. It is pretty damn cold. Okay. So yeah, Titans ended up being the number 1 overall pick. I believe. Did the Giants? We're about to get into it here in a sec. But Cleveland lost. They were the number 1 overall pick until the Titans lost. So the Titans are the number 1 overall pick. Cleveland is the 2nd pick. Giants are the 3rd pick right now. So there we go. I believe the Giants lost as well to seal that position. So there we go. But yeah, Ravens clinched the division. They win 35-10. They'll host somebody next week. We'll get to the quick rundown of the matchups when we get later in this episode here. The Bengals also beat the Steelers to continue the Steelers' losing skid. They now lost 4 in a row after the Bengals beat them 19-17. And we got our first firing of the offseason here. Well, not the first chronologically, but as far as recapping these games goes, it's the first one that I'm going to talk about here. Lou Anarumo got hosed. He got fired as the defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. This is just this is a classic Bengals move. You gave him nothing to work with, and then were shocked and just appalled whenever he had a bad defense. this was always going to happen. And to punish Lou Anarumo with being fired after, I mean, literally, you gave him nothing in the secondary, nothing in the linebacking core. Basically, the only thing you gave him was Trey Hendrickson. That's it. And Trey Hendrickson is spectacular. But Trey Hendrickson can't carry an entire defense by himself. Lou Anarumo got hosed. It wasn't his fault that Duke Tobin and everyone evaluating the talent just whiffed on a bunch of draft picks. And it doesn't help that Duke Tobin, Mike Brown, and everyone making the financial decisions chose not to retain Jesse Bates whenever he was up for free agency. He's now an all-pro safety with the Atlanta Falcons. He's still every bit as good as he once was with the Bengals. You just decided not to pay him. Hey, there's a lot of contracts coming in, so you got to choose somewhere. But the draft picks have not been working out. They hit on one every once in a while. If it's super obvious, they'll hit on that one for sure. But the late first rounders just not worked out whatsoever. It's just the offensive line is bad for the Bengals, but the defense in specific, they gave Lou Anarumo nothing, and they still fired him. Bengals did all they could. Ultimately, they don't make the postseason because, as many of us expected, the Broncos took care of business. I mean, they ran the Chiefs off the field with Carson Wentz at quarterback and a bunch of players sitting. So, yeah, Bengals didn't make the playoffs. Probably better for their draft position, but with Duke Tobin making the pick, and still, I think if I'm not mistaken, the coaching staff is the scouting department for Cincinnati. It's a very small business sort of operation they've got going on there, with people who are supposed to be coaches also performing front office roles. Like the head coach is also a scout somehow. So with that dynamic in mind, I don't see the personnel situation improving. They're going to pay Jamar Chase. I don't think they'll pay T. Higgins because Mike Brown is a horrid cheap ass, and that's why his team will never be good. They're going to they obviously already got Joe Burrow there. Joe Burrow is just going to be trapped there for all of time. He's going to have a fantastic career. He's going to have like a Dan Marino type of career, and he's going to have nothing to show for it because he plays for a joke of a franchise. And hey, it's not his fault that he plays for the poorest owner. I mean, poor being a relative term, still $900 million plus in overall, what's the word? Net value? Oh God, net worth? Jesus, I don't know how that just slipped my mind there. Not poor in the grand scheme of things, but poor in the grand scheme of NFL owners, and he acts like it. The Bengals will just never be good. They'll be good because they have Joe Burrow, they got Jamar Chase, and Chase Brown ended up being an all right draft pick, so good for them there, I suppose. But yeah, they're not going to have the horses on defense unless they really just luck out on one or two of these drafts, or really these next two drafts coming up. The offensive line, I don't know how they address it outside of free agency, and I don't think they're willing to spend enough money to get quality free agents in there for the offensive line. It is what it is. This is the reality for the Bengals. They're a 9-8 to 11-6 team that we're not going to take seriously in the postseason because the way the organization is run, they're inherently going to have huge flaws on their roster that you can't get past when you play playoff caliber teams. It is what it is at this point. The Steelers, at the very least, you got a good coach. Mike Tomlin, 10-6, what's this, 18 straight winning seasons at this point? So you got a good coach. But he's so good, and the front office has been so, inept probably isn't the right word, but they've been in the middle of the first round in the 20s in the first round for years and years and years at this point because their coach is so damn good that even without a quarterback to speak for, even going back to the end of the Ben Roethlisberger era, even without a quarterback to speak from, they're still going to the playoffs almost every year as like a 6 or a 7 seed each and every single year, to a point where now, they're not in a position to draft a quarterback like ever. They'd have to trade up to do so, and the Steelers are not a team that's been willing to give up the draft assets in order to move up and get that quarterback up high. And I don't think this year is a good draft for them to do it. Maybe you roll the dice on Cam Ward. Honestly, Shedeur Sanders going into the Steelers organization would not be a bad thing. I just don't think those three teams up top that I mentioned before, talking about the Titans, the Browns, the Giants, all three of those teams are looking for a quarterback, and there's really only two that are worth taking in the first round overall this year. So the Steelers are going to be out in the cold once again. I don't know what they do. Do they run it back with Russell Wilson again? Do they just plow all their assets into building up the offensive line and the receivers? Receivers are a lot more of an issue right now, so I would focus on that. That's probably the way that I would do it, but I don't see the Steelers being demonstrably different next year, and I see them probably losing in the first round with the way that they've been playing. They're just not, they're not up to snuff, and I don't know that the roster is going to get there because they haven't been hitting lotteries on these mid-round draft picks. They're getting good starters, but they're not getting all-pro level guys like TJ Watt. It's been a while since one of those has come along with one of these draft picks. Hey, Omar Khan's got some work ahead of him. That's the bottom line here. Steelers, you're still in a good spot. Do not overreact and fire Mike Tomlin. That's my advice to you. Mike Tomlin is still, I think, in his 50s at this point. Sorry, just got a text there from a coworker. Had to make sure it was nothing that I needed to address right away. I guess I'm still technically on work hours right now, but here's hoping when I come out of the closet that we get a little bit of good news when I look out the window and hopefully don't see snow. Not very optimistic on that, but we'll see how it all works out. Anyways, not really taking the Steelers seriously. Bengals, I feel sorry for the Bengals fans, of which I know many. Okay, so with that said, let's move on to the Sunday games. Utterly meaningless one in the grand scheme of things. Well, utterly meaningless for the Panthers here. The Falcons, if they won, could have locked up the division with a Buccaneers loss, although the Buccaneers did win, so it didn't really matter on that front either. So in the grand scheme of things, looking in hindsight, pretty much completely meaningless. That being said, don't tell the Panthers that. They came out and just lit the Falcons defense on fire. This was probably the funnest game of Sunday. I really had a good time watching this game. Utterly meaningless, like I said, all throughout, utterly meaningless. But the Panthers end up getting the win here, 44-38 in overtime. They needed a late touchdown in order to tie this thing to go to overtime. And don't look now, Bryce Young, he wasn't just serviceable, he wasn't just good, he was sensational in this game. 25 of 34, 251 passing yards, 7.4 yards per attempt. Pretty average pedestrian yards per attempt numbers, but again, we're up in like the mid-sevens right now. You should be over the moon if you were a Panthers fan based on the mid-sevens, based on where he once was. Oh yeah, by the way, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Also ran for 24 yards, 2 touchdowns as well. 5 total touchdowns on the day, including the game-tying touchdown. And then ultimately... Yeah. Well, maybe it wasn't the game time touchdown. There's so many touchdowns in this game that I just lost track of it. So we'll just get a quick look at the game cast here to make sure I'm not just blowing smoke here. But okay, so actually, Bryce Young and Michael Penix were dueling it out in this one. So Bryce Young ended up taking the lead, went ahead with a rushing touchdown with 4 minutes left. Falcons drive all the way down the field. Bijan Robinson gets the touchdown with 46 seconds left to send this thing to overtime. Panthers had a terrible possession. The ensuing possession doesn't really matter. Then you get to overtime. Lo and behold, Miles Sanders is not dead, and in fact, he is scoring multiple touchdowns. He scored a touchdown in overtime to seal it. He also scored a long touchdown that he, like a touchdown reception earlier on in this game. Bryce Young, man. Bryce Young... You've got to be just giddy if you are a Panthers fan right now. Bryce Young looks fantastic at the moment. He is playing, obviously, he's gotten better and better every week since his benching, essentially, and it just kind of puts the cap on it. What a great game to run into the offseason with if you're Bryce Young. This is a huge offseason for the Panthers. And we'll talk about the Falcons of this all here in just a second because I do have to go through the numbers because they did put up some Looney Tune stats in this game. But as far as the Panthers are concerned, you're pretty confident you got the quarterback that you want to roll forward with. I think Bryce Young has shown more than enough this year to where, okay, we're gonna put an extra mortgage on the house and we are just gonna plow all the resources into this team. This offseason, there are clear places where the Panthers need to improve. First and foremost, you have got to shore up the defense. You have got to start you got to start putting big boy money into the secondary is what I got to say. You have got to sign some elite corners. You have got to sign some elite safeties, or at the very least draft some elite safeties. In addition to that, you need more bodies on the offensive line. You certainly need more receivers. Those 3 areas, you address those 3 areas in some capacity this offseason, the Panthers are going to be on the cusp of a playoff spot next year. Mark my words. I've been burned by this sort of take in the past pertaining to the Panthers. But if they play their cards right this offseason, if they do well in the draft, if they spend big money in free agency and bring in impactful free agents, especially on the outside, both at corner and at wide receiver, this is a team that could very easily make a playoff run next year. I think they're going to be hovering right around the 9-8, 8-9. Just kind of depends on what kind of personnel decisions they make. But you hired the right guy in Dave Canales. That's the thing that you can take away from this season. You went 5-12, but the way Bryce Young has been playing, you hired the right guy in Dave Canales. You got to roll forward with what you got in him. The only way that I think this doesn't move in the right direction is if David Tepper gets his grubby little fingers in there and fucks it up. That's the only way that I see this thing going wrong, and David Tepper has done that in the past. He may ultimately do that in the future. All he has to do at this point, though, is take his hands off the wheel and let the guys that he hired do the job that he hired them to do. Jury's still out on Dan Morgan. He's had 1 season as the GM. Obviously did a fantastic job in hiring Dave Canales, being a part of that process at the very least, and hiring Dave Canales. He's still got some things to prove personnel-wise. I think he made some good pickups this offseason. Rubber's going to meet the road here in this 2025 offseason with the free agency and draft. It's not the biggest one that he will have had by the time it's all said and done if he sticks around there for a while. But so far, this is going to be the biggest offseason that he's had. The following offseason, the 2026 offseason, going to be even bigger if David Tepper doesn't fuck it all up and fire him. So right now, this is the biggest step so far in the process. There will be bigger steps in the future, but you got to focus on the big step right now. I love what the Panthers are doing. So long as they keep this head coach here, if they keep Bryce Young with the head coach, I feel very good about their future going forward. Now, let's flip things over to the Falcons. You know, this is a game that does not exactly bode well for Raheem Morris. This is a game that you had to have. Obviously, you needed some help from other teams along the way, and you didn't get it, so it would have been a moot point regardless for the Atlanta Falcons. But this is a game that you needed to have, and the defense didn't show up. Now, frankly, the defense hasn't shown up all year, but I get it. The Carolina Panthers, they've been better. Bryce Young has been fantastic, but Bryce Young looked like the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. He was looking like the Steph Curry of football in this one. He was dropping dimes, but guys were also running kind of open as well. The Falcons' defense didn't show up. The Falcons' offense, I mean, all the credit in the world to them. I mean, Bijan Robinson went for 170 on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Drake London went 10 receptions, 187 yards and 2 touchdowns in this one. Looney Tunes numbers. Michael Penix, take it or leave it as far as the day is concerned, but over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. You're still getting more touchdowns than turnovers, which is good. Very, very good stuff at the end of the day. You feel good rolling forward with Michael Penix. The jury is all the way out on Raheem Morris. I stand by what I said all last offseason. He deserved this opportunity. He's been unfairly maligned for the coaching job that he did when he was 31, 32 years old and got the job before he was really remotely ready for it. So I'm sticking with that. He deserved this opportunity, but what he's done with the opportunity so far has left a lot to be desired. Obviously, Kirk Cousins was not the player that he was expected to be coming in. The defense was atrocious, and we all kind of assumed that coming into the season. Offensively, though, with what they had in the building, they should have been able to score their way to many, many more wins than what they had this year. They should have won this division, by my estimation. With all the injuries that the Buccaneers sustained throughout the course of this season, the Falcons should have just grabbed this division by the throat and not let go, and they just didn't do that. The offense looked shaky all season. The defense, even schematically, looked like a bit of a disaster. They had some flashes throughout the course of this year, and this isn't like a fireable sort of season. I mean, 8-9 is still good enough to keep you around for another year or two. But Raheem Morris did not acquit himself well this season. And unfortunately, Terry Fontenot is his GM, and I'm still utterly convinced that he has no idea what he's doing. But it does not all fall on Terry Fontenot. Raheem Morris did not do him a whole lot of favors throughout the course of this year. Color me shocked. I mean, we get to the end of the season, and I don't feel great about where the Falcons are at. At the very least, I like Michael Penix. I do like Michael Penix, so keep rolling forward with him. Bijan Robinson's great. Drake London is great. I mean, offense is not the issue here personnel-wise. It's the scheme, and it's the scheme on the other side and the personnel on the other side of the ball. Falcons got a lot of work to do. That's the main thing. Falcons have got a whole lot of work to do, but thank you for leaving us off with a banger this football season. I would really do appreciate that. Okay, so with that said, how much time did I spend on that game? Good Lord, I spent entirely too much time on that game. Okay, we'll keep it moving from there. Commanders, it was a little bit interesting. They were rolling with Marcus Mariota for most of this game. They do get the win, though, 23-19. I don't know if there's been word on Mike McCarthy yet as far as what the Cowboys are planning to do with him this year. Jerry Jones has a penchant for drama, so he may just push that decision until Wild Card Weekend happens this coming weekend. So that could be fun. Could be fun stuff, but I don't think any word on that just yet for the Cowboys. They do have a contract thing where Mike McCarthy's a free agent after a certain point, so he's either going to get a contract. They don't even really have to fire him. They can just let him walk in coaching free agency if they really want to. So still monitoring that situation, but maybe something that we revisit whenever I get back from work later, assuming I'm able to get out of this fucking apartment at some point. Big if. Not good timing for it either. Really bad timing for a snow day as well, but I digress. Hey. Shouts out to the Bears, man. Shouts out to the Bears. It took the Packers sitting every one of their starters, including Jordan Love. But you know what? Hey, you finally got a win against the Packers in Lambeau at that. Cairo Santos goes out there doing the Didier Drogba celebration. Kyle Brandt has no idea who Didier Drogba is. I don't even watch soccer, and I know who Didier Drogba is. But yeah. He does the Didier Drogba celebration after kicking the game-winning field goal, and the Bears get themselves a nice little moral victory heading into the offseason, 24-22 over the Packers. Packers still notably the 6th seed in the NFC playoffs. So maybe the 7th seed? Actually, yes, they are the 7th seed because the Commanders won. So yeah, the 7th seed in the NFC was 11-6 this year. Brutal year to be a 10-7 team unless you are, in fact, the Buccaneers in the NFC this year. Brutal stuff. But yeah, Bears get the win. They're now on the head coaching search. Who knows what they're going to do? I don't know if they're going to convince Ben Johnson to come on over or what. Who knows if, I guess they're sticking with Ryan Poles at this point. I would assume that would have been a Black Monday headline if they weren't. And who's to say? Maybe that headline's coming down as I'm looking at this, I suppose. I don't know. I don't know. We'll revisit that later if that ends up coming to pass. But yeah, Bears are a shit show until proven otherwise. They're much like the Chiefs in the AFC West. I'm not going to pick the Bears to finish above last in the division until they show me something in a season. It's just not happening. It's just not happening for me. I'm not going to pick them to go to the playoffs. I'm not going to pick them to finish anywhere other than 4th place in the NFC North until I'm proven otherwise. So there we go. Packers, I don't feel demonstrably different about them. They're still, until proven otherwise, I think they're going to have to go on the road to, who's that? I'm forgetting. Is it the, actually, no, I think the Vikings might be on the road to play the Rams, which is even worse. The Packers might be on the road to play the Buccaneers, which, oh boy, things might get a little bit interesting here in the first round, but we'll put a pin in that for now. The Texans took care of business against the Titans 23-14. Even with the backups all in there, the Titans were so abysmal it just didn't matter. The Titans are now your number 1 overall pick. I would assume they're going to take, it's either going to be Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. I take your pick there. They're not rolling with the quarterbacks they got in the building right now. I can assure you of that. Texans, though, we don't need to talk about the Texans. Somehow Bobby Slowick got a head coaching interview, or at the very least a request for a head coaching interview for the Jets job. You want to talk about a dumpster fire of a franchise? That one over there. That one right over there in New York. Wild stuff there. I don't know how you look at the season the Texans have had on offense and say, yeah, Bobby Slowick, he strikes me as a head coach, man. He looks like a head coach to me. Jets are a joke. Absolute joke. The Colts win a meaningless game against the Jaguars, 26-23. I'm not really going to talk about the win here. Outside of saying, I mean, really all the headlines came after. So the Colts are going to be rolling with Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard for another year. Jim Irsay is the other kind of bad owner. So David Tepper is one kind of bad owner. Let me just lay it out like this. David Tepper is one kind of bad owner, completely impatient, makes bad hires, pulls the trigger on those bad hires way too early and fires them in 1 year. That's one kind of bad owner. The other type of bad owner, who is the type of one that everyone else in the world can see the GM is not good enough. Chris Ballard, he's been given entirely too many chances at this point. He's going to get one more somehow. Shane Steichen, I felt great about Shane Steichen after last season. With what's been going on with the team, culture-wise, just play on the field, I don't feel good about Shane Steichen either. But Jim Irsay is that other type of owner that even when everyone in the world can see that it is a mistake to continue rolling forward with these people, will continue to roll forward with that mistake. He's entirely too loyal to his guys, and it's been a problem basically for his entire tenure as the owner. I would say specifically with GMs, he kept Bill Polian around a little bit too long. Honestly, you could make an argument that he fired him a little bit too soon, but hard to keep the GM around after a 2-14 season, even with the prospect of getting Andrew Luck in the building. I can understand that. You kept Ryan Grigson around entirely too long, and now you have kept Chris Ballard along probably longer than you should have had, even longer than you should have kept Ryan Grigson, frankly. I don't know how you look at Chris Ballard's GMing job. Look at the inability to bring in free agents, or maybe even the unwillingness to spend money on free agents with all the cap room that they have. Obviously, Indianapolis is a tough sell for big-time free agents, but you have the money to spend on them to wipe that away. I mean, Charlotte's kind of a tough sell for free agents as well, especially with how much of a dumpster fire that the Panthers are. But David Tepper has, shown, if nothing else, a willingness to spend all the money left in his pocket to get a team that's worth putting out in the field. Chris Ballard has been unable to do that, and Jim Irsay has been unable to force his hand into doing that. He's made bad trades for quarterbacks, specifically Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz. He's made bad draft picks. When was the last time you heard Leatu Latu's name? I think for most of you, it was probably when was the draft? Last May? That was probably the last time you heard Leatu Latu's name. Just bad personnel decisions up and down the roster. He's been buoyed by a couple, good hits. He had one solid draft 1 year where he got Quentin Nelson, Shaq Leonard. He's been solid enough at bringing in linebackers, so credit where it's due there. Another thing where Jim Irsay comes in here, he has strong-armed the coaching staff there, Shane Steichen specifically, into keeping a lame duck defensive coordinator in, what's his name? What's the Indianapolis defensive coordinator's name? It's not Joe Barry. Joe Barry is out of a job right now. I gotta look this up. I'm sorry. Colts defensive coordinator. It's probably I'm probably gonna remember this as a Gus Bradley. There it is. Gus Bradley is the defensive coordinator. They rolled with him for probably 3 years too long, dating back to the previous administration that was there for the coaching staff. It's just all bad for the Colts right now, man. They're not a well-run organization. They have serious, deeply ingrained culture problems because, at least for my money, it's because the people who are running the organization don't feel any sort of fear of consequences because they know so long as they get buddy-buddy with the owner, it's not going to be an issue for him because a lot like Jerry Jones, actually, if he can just sit down, have a nice conversation with Jim Irsay, have a cigar or something. I don't know what his feelings are on alcohol at this point with his, storied drug problems, but if you can just hang out with the owner, you're probably set for 5-6 years in the Colts organization, just by virtue of having that relationship. I'm not going to say the Colts are a joke of an organization, but it's sad to see where they've fallen to after the Andrew Luck era and the Peyton Manning era before him. It's not a well-run organization, and I don't really see it getting any better with Jim Irsay at the helm, or Carly Irsay, or whatever number of family members who are making the decisions on the day-to-day basis. Because with Jim Irsay's health, excuse me. I've been talking a lot here. With Jim Irsay's health situation, I'm not convinced that Jim Irsay is the one actually making the decisions there. It feels like the daughters have got POA in the organization. We'll just say that right now. It feels like the daughters are running things on the day-to-day a lot more than Jim Irsay is, and I don't know. Whoever's making the decisions is doing a poor job, and something's got to change. I just don't think it will, and as a result, I see the Colts being roughly the same team that they were this year, next year. I mean, Anthony Richardson's going to put up historically terrible numbers at quarterback. Probably going to do one or two things that you scratch your head at and be like, man, in a better organization, there'd be a lot more consequences for this. The defense is going to continue to be bad because, for whatever reason, Jim Irsay just loves Gus Bradley. Just hanging on to those Legion of Boom days for all that they're worth, I suppose. And, Colts are just going to be right here next year. Not a real serious contender for the playoffs. They're another team where if I don't see serious change, I'm not gonna pick them to go to the playoffs going forward here. So, hey, we'll see if they can turn around and prove me wrong, but I just don't feel that way. And that's all before we get to the Jaguars of it all. The Jaguars finally fired Doug Peterson. Felt like something that he was pre-fired for the last 2 months of the season, if not the entire season, pretty much, with how they started. Color me shocked, Trent Baalke's not getting fired after putting together an awful roster. I'm sure he got into Shad Khan's ear and whispered sweet nothings about, no, the roster was great. The coaching staff. It's the coaching staff that's the problem. We need to get a new slate in the coaching staff. And then he just hopes all along that Shad Khan doesn't take a step back and look at, hey, wait a second. It's been the coaching staff's fault for the last 3 coaching cycles. What's going on here? Maybe it is the GM's fault. Shad Khan didn't do that, obviously, so Trent Baalke's going to be the GM. Somehow he escapes once again, because that's just what Trent Baalke does. He just keeps the job somehow. He is an elite, world-class hobnobber, if I've ever seen one. That's the only way he's been able to keep this job at this point. And as a result, I don't feel any different about the Jaguars. That is a lame duck franchise. I don't care who's at quarterback. I don't care who they got at wide receiver. The defense is always going to be bad. The offensive line's always going to be a disaster. Whatever coach that comes in there is not going to have a snowball's chance in hell of success. Maybe they pull out a 10-7, 9-8 year every once in a while just because they got Trevor Lawrence there. Maybe if they hire a good offensive coach. You're diving on a grenade if you take that Jaguars job. A lot like I felt about the Panthers job last offseason. I feel the exact same about that Jaguars job, and I think the Jaguars is an even worse situation, frankly, because the GM is going to throw you under the bus at the first opportunity. You are the scapegoat at all times. They don't hire head coaches. They hire scapegoats. That's what the Jaguars do. Joke of a franchise. I would say poor Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence kind of is who he is at this point. He is not the quarterback that he was expected to be coming out of college, but you're also paying him $250 million, whatever he ended up getting last offseason. So, good luck. Good luck, Jaguars fans. The bottom, the AFC South looks abysmal. The Texans are the only ones with an ounce of hope. Everyone else is just awful. Just terrible. We'll see what the Titans can do. Maybe they can sign some more free agents and get a good draft class in there. I just don't know how much better they're going to get than 3-14 next year. It just kind of depends on who they get as the quarterback, I suppose, in this draft. But, tough times in the AFC South. The Patriots did one of the more hilarious things that we saw this Sunday, with Joe Milton at the helm after Drake May just had the one series and then, took his exit. Joe Milton at the helm went 22 of 29, 241, 1 touchdown. I am convinced that some ill-advised owner, GM, some combination of the two, someone is going to fool themselves into trading for Joe Milton this offseason. They'll probably trade like a 5th-round pick or something for him even. If the Patriots can get more value out of Joe Milton than what they got him at the 6th round, you take that deal, by the way. Someone's going to trade entirely too much draft capital for him, and they're going to realize, oh, wait, he's just got an insane arm, and he's not all that good. But this game, might have earned himself some money. That's what I got to say on that front. But the Patriots get the win over the Bills, 23-16. They officially get themselves out of the running for the number 1 overall pick, which is fine because they don't need a quarterback. But it's really just a poke in the eye at the ownership. And the ownership didn't appreciate it because I'm talking like an hour or two after this game ended, the headline came down through the Twitter sphere that the Patriots were not going to retain Gerard Mayo, which kind of saw the writing on the wall for that already. But it says a lot that they pulled the trigger that quickly. And I don't know who they're going to get for this. I think Mike Vrabel is a strong candidate, and I think there's a lot of mutual interest there based on, the history that Mike Vrabel has with the franchise, and especially since it's looking like Ryan Day is going to keep his job with Ohio State. That kind of opens up the Vrabel options in the NFL a little bit more now that he's not waiting on that job, I would assume anyways. So that's probably the direction they're going in. We'll see if they can get Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel is going to be a hot commodity in this head coaching cycle, just based on the options that are available. I think the Bears are going to be in the running for him. I think the Patriots certainly are going to be the front runners for him. Jets will probably throw their hat in the ring as well. I think the price is going to be high to bring in Mike Vrabel, but I think that's ultimately the direction that the Patriots want to go in. So that's really all I had to say there. The Patriots are trending in the direction of joke franchise themselves. They just won so many Super Bowls that we're holding out hope for right now that they can pull this thing together, but they're not good. They're not good, and Jonathan Kraft is a clown, an absolute clown. It feels like Jonathan Kraft is the one running the day-to-day there for the Patriots, and you can see the line of demarcation. I'll just put it this way. You can see the line of demarcation around the time when Brady was thinking about leaving, and after he left, you saw the quality of this roster crater. In the last couple of years of Brady, you saw the roster quality crater, and I think that is in large part due to the influence of Jonathan Kraft. If I were a Patriots fan, I would be very worried about the second generation of ownership coming in here as we get to the twilight of Bob Kraft's ownership tenure here. Whew, you better hope you nail this next head coaching hire. At the very least, the saving grace is you have a quarterback. Drake May has acquitted himself very nicely this year. If you don't get the head coaching job right, it's not going to matter. It's really not going to matter. And yeah, we'll see what they do. I'm less than optimistic though. Bills don't need to talk to them. They basically forfeited this game. They were the 2 seed no matter what. Makes no difference whether they win or lose this game. They wave the white flag on this one. Eagles get the win over the Giants, 20-13. That locks the Giants in at the number 3 overall pick. Buccaneers get the win over the Saints, and that ultimately clinched the division for them in the NFC South, so they'll be hosting a playoff game this year. Not going to hit on this game a whole lot outside of just to say that the Buccaneers did some really cool shit in this game. This game, it was looking real dicey. In the first half, especially, they were down 16-6 at halftime. It was looking bad for long stretches of this game, but 21-3 in the second half, they get the win over the Saints, and game in hand, Saints turn the ball over on downs, about a minute and a half left. All the Buccaneers had to do was kneel it out in order to win this game, but Mike Evans, sitting at, I want to say, 995 yards on the season. It would be his first career season without 1,000 yards. So on the last possession, nothing to play for, really, nothing to throw the ball for. Could really honestly risk losing the game with a pick six. They say, fuck it, we're getting our guy an easy completion. We're getting our guy to 1,000. They do it. First play of the drive. Mike Evans goes for 7-8 yards, gets up celebrating. Everyone in the stadium is celebrating. He gets over 1,000 yards for the 11th straight season. Now he's just chasing Jerry Rice for the most consecutive seasons. Jerry Rice is going to be hard to catch. He's got to. Mike Evans has got to get 3 straight more 1,000-yard seasons just to tie Jerry Rice. So that's going to be a hard one to get to, but he's all on at second all time. Just really, really cool shit by the Buccaneers, man. I loved seeing that. The only reason why it was even a question is because Mike Evans missed those games with the hamstring injury debacle there. I love that. It was a great moment. I don't give a shit if it's stat padding. I don't give a shit if it's, there's an asterisk or whatever. That was awesome. That was awesome. That's what classy organizations do. That's what good coaching staffs do. I'm still kind of here or there on Todd Bowles as far as his game management is concerned, but as far as a culture builder, you got to love what the Buccaneers have built down there. It's fantastic. I love that. I love that. It was the best feel good moment of the Sunday for me. Watching that, which it just warmed my cold dead heart. I'll just say that right now. It warmed my cold dead heart. Okay, so we'll keep it moving from there. Broncos beat the hell out of the Chiefs 38-0. That was night on the Bengals playoff hopes there. Chargers took care of business versus the Raiders 34-20. Quentin Johnston, lo and behold, starting to look like a first-round pick. 13 receptions, 186 yards. That brings his season total to, well, still 711 yards, but it's not exactly a passing offense. So you can kind of, let bygones be bygones there. He's a guy that you got to feel good about going forward. Maybe he's not the guy that you want to roll with as your number 2 receiver behind Ladd McConkey, or maybe Ladd McConkey's not the guy that you want to roll with as your number 1. I don't know what the Chargers are thinking. They probably need 1 or 2 more receivers in there is the moral of the story. Brock Bowers did ultimately pass Malik Neighbors in this game and owns the rookie record for receptions at 110. Best tight end in the league. You can fight me on that. Sue me if you want to. I don't know why you would, but that's the best tight end in the league right there as a rookie. He's in for a hell of a career. I just hope the Raiders get him some semblance of quarterback play. It's not looking favorable to do so in this draft this year. At 4-13, that would have put you in position last year. There's so many god awful teams that I don't know. The Raiders might be picking like 6th, 7th. At 4-13, there's just so many awful teams, so many awful teams. Outside of that, though, Raiders are another team. I've not really heard anything on the Raiders. I think they might be rolling forward with Antonio Pierce. Let me see if there has been any updates on that. It looks like a lot of Jets headlines here. Yeah, nothing to write home about it with Antonio Pierce. Not had any vote of confidence, I don't believe, for Antonio Pierce, but that's one to watch. Maybe some that we come and revisit here later on in the episode, or we may not revisit anything later on this episode. I don't know. We'll just have to see how it all works out there. Moving on there to another Western Division matchup, this time in the NFC. Seahawks beat the Rams in an utterly meaningless game, 30-25. Jimmy Garoppolo went over 300 yards. Selfishly, and my agent of chaos brain wants someone to sign Jimmy Garoppolo like $20 million a year again, just so I can see it fail. But that's not much to write home about with this game. I think the Rams I can't remember if they're the 3 or the 4 seed. It's something that I probably should know. We'll get to that here in just a second. We'll get to that here in just a second. Hey, shout out to the Seahawks. 10-7 this year. Probably a little bit better than I expected. A little bit up and down at times. Got some things to figure out. Ryan Grubb needs to get his head out of his ass calling plays sometimes, but defense was much better. Mike McDonald has acquitted himself nicely this year. I think you roll forward with what you got and hope to God that for once in his life, John Robinson drafts a good offensive line or brings in good offensive line free agents. Either way, that will be bucking a lot of historical trends for his GMing tenure, but we will digress and we will move on from there. The Jets beat the Dolphins in the final week of the season to win, 32-20. They finished the season 5-12. Aaron Rodgers finishes with a nice little game to end things off. 4 touchdowns, 274 yards. Devontae Adams had a nice one, 6 receptions, 88 yards, and a touchdown. I think we just saw Aaron Rodgers' last game in the NFL. I don't see a compelling reason for Aaron Rodgers to come back for another year, outside of just feeding the competitive fire, anxiety about what he would do after football. Though at this point, maybe he's just coping with all this hippy dippy shit he's doing. But I feel like he's gonna do fine after the NFL. Well, depends on your definition of fine, I suppose. But I think he's gonna. It's going to be real weird, but I think ultimately he's just going to do what makes him happy whenever he's done with the league. And I don't know. You saw a significant fall off physically this year. he was not the same player that he's been in many years past. If he does come back, I don't think he's coming back to the Jets. Certainly not coming back to the Jets, I don't think. But I think Aaron Rodgers retires after this year. Just the way that he was talking in the post game, talking to Pam Oliver, gave her a nice long hug after that, kept the game ball on his final touchdown pass. I don't think he's going into his darkness retreat this year, but he's going to go out in some estate in Montana or something in the middle of nowhere, drink some ayahuasca tea, see God for 5 hours or so, and then he's going to, ultimately decide to retire. At least that's the read that I get. The last time that he went into the darkness, it told him to go to the Jets. So I think we can rule out the darkness retreat again. I think that just kind of leads to bad decisions. But yeah, it's time to hang it up, Aaron. You've always said in interviews, and I've listened to a lot of Aaron Rodgers interviews because up until recently I was still chugging along with those Aaron Rodgers Tuesday interviews on the Pat McAfee show. He's said in the past, and Aaron Rodgers is a noted liar, so he might just be lying, if not to everyone else, to himself, that when he doesn't feel physically like he can perform anymore, he'll bow out. If he stays true to his word there, Aaron Rodgers played the last down that he's going to play in the National Football League, which, what a great career if that is the last time that he played. I mean, could have been so much better if the Packers would have held up their end of the bargain defensively for a lot of years. A little bit up and down. He is, like the name of his shitty documentary, he is an enigma. To say the least. When he's on, he was the best quarterback in the league, bar none. That's in the same league as Tom Brady, as Peyton Manning. When you talk regular season stats and you talk about his performance in regular season games, he's the best quarterback that I've ever seen, short of Patrick Mahomes. But invariably, you get down to crunch time, and whether it was the defense not holding up their end of the bargain, or whether it was just Aaron Rodgers flat out not showing up when you needed him to. I'm thinking specifically 2022, I believe it was. Maybe it was 2021, the year that the Packers went 13-3 or 13-4, whichever one it was, and lost in the divisional round in the first game that they played at home. I can't remember, was that one to the Jets? No, that wasn't to the Jets. No. The Jets are terrible. Why would I think it was the Jets? I think it was the 49ers, actually, that they lost to in like an absolute rock fight of a game. Just an interesting career. First ballot Hall of Famer, make no mistake about it. His legacy was hampered by just play on the field in clutch time situations in the playoffs, and ultimately the weird shit that he got into off the field. Enigma is the best way to put him. And if this was his last game, congrats on a great career, Aaron. I don't necessarily like you as a human being. I think you're weird and a liar and not a very honest person. Ultimately, I think you may think you're a good person, but I don't think you're necessarily that good of a person either. But at the same time, great player. Absolutely great player, a great career, and deserves all the credit in the world for that. Doesn't really matter whether I like the guy or not. I give him all the credit in the world. He was a great player in his prime. He's just past that prime, and it's time to hang him up at this point. Okay, so last game on the docket here, and we'll just hit it real quick. Cardinals get the win over the 49ers. 49ers end the season 6-11. Just bad. Even Josh Dobbs actually lit the Cardinals up. 29 of 43, 326, 2 touchdowns. Patrick Taylor had over 100 yards on the ground. Ricky Pearsall caught a touchdown in this game. The problem is the Cardinals came out and scored 47. That would include 21 to zip in the fourth quarter. Kyler Murray had 4 touchdowns through the air. Michael Carter and Tony Jones, who I'm sure all of us have heard of before, went for touchdowns on the ground. Josh Dobbs turned the ball over 3 times with 2 interceptions and 1 lost fumble. And ultimately, that was the difference when it was all said and done. Just stick a fork in it. This game was done. At the very least, if you're the Cardinals, you got a moral victory, but you find yourself in a strange situation. I think you know the areas of the team that you have to address. Specifically, just plow all of your resources in the defensive side of the ball. If you had a semblance of a good defense this year, I think there's a real argument to be made that the Cardinals would be winning this NFC West with just a semblance of a good defense this year. They didn't have that. They got a couple good players to build off of, but nothing more than that. So you plow resources into the defense. You continue to invest heavily in the offensive line. Pick up one 2 more receivers. You're not far off on the receiving core. You may be 1 receiver away. But you can do all of that. You can build a solid roster. Monty Ossenfort can have an equally successful, what was it? This would be his 3rd off season. Or I guess, this would be his 3rd off season going into this one. You can feel that way all you want. You can get everything you need in there. And Kyler Murray is still going to leave you wondering if that's good enough to win a championship. This is just who Kyler is at this point. It's never going to change. I don't know if it's a bad study habits, if it's just a lack of mental discipline when you get into game situations. Kyler Murray's either going to light you on fire or he's going to be the reason that you lose the game. And there's not really a whole lot of in between for Kyler Murray's game. If Kyler Murray just performed consistently this year, I think the Cardinals still probably in a good position to maybe win the NFC West, even with a bad defense. Kyler Murray is just not good enough. It's not good enough is not even the right way to describe it. He's just not good enough on a consistent basis because he shows you these tantalizing things. He's so fast. He's so elusive in the running game. His arm is so electric when he's putting the ball in the right place and he's making the right decisions. He's just, for whatever reason, it's between the ears in some capacity. He just can't pull it all together on a consistent basis. So, with that dynamic, you can't trust a guy like that when you get into the playoffs. You just simply can't. So, can they be a playoff team with Kyler Murray? Absolutely. All you got to do is fix the defense, and I think they're a playoff team. But when you get down to crunch time, when you get into the big-time situations, I don't think Kyler Murray is a guy that you can trust week in, week out. I don't think you can trust him going 4-0 in the playoffs against the best teams in the entire league to win a championship. I don't see him doing that. But the Cardinals are just kind of stuck with him because he's got a giant contract. And he's just good enough to justify keeping him around. He's not like Deshaun Watson, where it's just an untenable situation. Oh, by the way, they're rolling with him in 2025, even though he just had a setback on his Achilles injury. That may ultimately change that, but still, it's a tough situation for the Cardinals right now. I think they got the right coaching staff in place. I think offensively, Drew Petzing has got some improving to do for sure, but I think you can't really make a solid evaluation on Nick Rallis with the personnel that he's been given on that defensive side of the ball just yet. Really, he's got 1 season left. 1 season for Nick Rallis to show some improvement, and if he doesn't show any improvement, I don't care what the personnel situation is. He's not sticking around for a 4th year at that point, or I guess it would be a 4th year at that point. So, yeah, Cardinals just weird situation for him right now. Weird situation. I think they'll be better in 2025, though. I think they're going to be a playoff team. It's just, how much farther do you get from there? I'm probably viewing a little farther into the future than some people are, but you got to be worried as long as you don't see improvement from Kyler Murray, you've just got to be worried about what you got rolling forward at the quarterback position if you're the Cardinals. 49ers-wise, I don't know what they're going to do this offseason. I don't know if they pay the piper and just get Brock Purdy his contract this offseason, if they just roll it forward 1 more year. I think they do still have 1 more year of Brock Purdy on that rookie deal before they absolutely have to pay him, whether it be through the franchise tag or through the forking him over the big bucks. I don't know what they're going to do quarterback-wise. I know offensive line, the time has come to just invest heavily into the offensive line. Offensive and defensive line, they've just skated by too long on just assuming that Trent Williams is going to be an all-pro every year and just assuming that Nick Bosa is going to cover up all of the deficiencies on their individual sides of the ball. It didn't work out that way this year. The defensive line for the 49ers has been a disaster. The offensive line for the 49ers has been bad all year as well. Even with that vaunted Shanahan running scheme, you're still able to score some points, sure, but we see what the problems are, and we saw they're 6-11 for a reason. And Brock Purdy was healthy for most of the season as well. So you don't have a whole lot of excuses. Yes, injury situation did ultimately torpedo their season. I will admit that wholeheartedly, that the injury situation torpedoed their season. But even without those injuries, I don't see them as better than a 10-7 football team. They flat out have deficiencies in key areas of the roster. I mean, they're just getting long in the tooth. defensively, offensively, they're getting long in the tooth. They don't have, I mean, outside of Trent Williams, they don't have anyone that you can rely on the offensive line for the 49ers. They just got to go back to the drawing board this year. And I don't know with the quarterback situation not the quarterback, but the contract situation that they have in relation to the quarterback. That's how I'll connect that there. I just don't see how they move forward here and put together a championship roster. I just think they squandered their window. Flat out. I don't think that's, I don't think, unless the 49ers undergo wholesale roster changes, I don't think they compete for a championship. With the core that they have with this roster, I don't think, unless you really just nail it with some draft picks, I don't think that I don't think that this 49ers core is going to get over the hump at this point. After a 6-11 year, it feels like it's over. It feels like that window is closed, and it's going to be a hard sell to open it back up again. But I do believe in Kyle Shanahan as a coach. I do believe in John Lynch as a GM. You just got to get the decisions right in the personnel department. You got to spend big in free agency. Just wondering what that means for the Brock Purdy contract, but jury is still out on that, I suppose. Okay, what are we doing time-wise? So, hour 15 ended up going a lot longer than I anticipated it, but let's just do a quick rundown of what the playoff matchups are here in week 1. So we got Chiefs-Lions both have byes. They locked in the 1 seed. Obviously, the Lions locked in their 1 seed after ripping my heart out on Sunday night. So, in the NFC, Vikings are on the road at the Rams. I'm equally as worried about that game as I would be against the Buccaneers. So, with that said, the Commanders are on the road at the Buccaneers as well. That's a bit of a toss-up. That one might be a banger. That could either be a banger or it'll be a blowout. I don't really know which way that's going to go. I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of in-between either. So, that could be a fun one. Eagles are hosting the Packers to round out the NFC Super Wildcard weekend here. I don't see it going a whole lot differently for the Packers than it has gone in previous matchups with really solid teams. Eagles are favored by 5.5. There's a reason they're favored by 5.5. I would actually lean toward the Eagles covering in this one. I think they're going to show up ready to take care of business this upcoming weekend. Actually, yeah, it is this upcoming weekend. My apologies. I just got a little confused there. So NFC is being played on Sunday, Monday, those sorts of days. But NFC looks like pretty much all going to be played on Saturday. Or AFC is pretty much all going to be played on Saturday, outside of the one game that they got at 1 p.m. But let's just talk about that here real quick. So the Texans are on the road at the no, they're not. I don't like the way that this is structured, but the Chargers are on the road at the Texans in round 1. Chargers are favored by 2.5. That would be my lean as well. I think the Chargers have just played much better than the Texans this year. And I just feel like the Texans are destined for a round 1 exit. So that would be my heavy lean on that one. We'll talk about picks there later. The Steelers are on the road at the Ravens. Ravens are favored by 9.5, and I do not trust that number. I'm probably just going to stay away from this game entirely. Hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. Hard. Very difficult to beat a team 3 times in 1 year, or at the very least win that third matchup when you're facing them for the third time. I think this game may ultimately end up being a rock fight, but Steelers in the playoffs have shown a penchant for wilting, so we'll see on that, but I'm staying the hell away from that one. That game reeks. I'll say that right now. That game reeks. And the Broncos are on the road at the Bills. Bills are favored by 9.5 in this one. I actually kind of lean the Broncos, frankly. We'll get into a little bit more of the matchups on Thursday, but I don't know if the numbers should be that high, but the Bills have earned it. They're a juggernaut of a football team, and I would say still playing probably the best football in the AFC right now, with the exception of a game here or there. It still feels like the Chiefs are going to go all the way to the Super Bowl. They're going to find a way. That home field advantage going into Arrowhead, it just feels like they're going to find a way. But there you go. There you have it. No picks for today. We're putting them on ice. Maybe I'll add a pick or two when we talk in the next episode here on Thursday. But that's it for now. Might be back later. I'd never really included a spot to include some Black Monday headlines that may have popped up throughout the course of the day. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But Lord willing, that nothing else pops up. that's all for today. So appreciate you all tuning into this. This has been Unqualified Analysis. If you enjoyed, go ahead, subscribe wherever you listen to this. Spotify, Apple, YouTube. It is still snowing outside. Great, love that. Apple, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, I don't care. Whatever. Do what you got to do. Follow me on the socials at CalebVUA. Just shoot me a DM if you want to get in contact with me. Or go to the email, unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com. Though, I would like to reiterate, I have still not checked that email in quite some time. So, whoopsie daisy. Just shoot me a DM. Just shoot me a DM on Twitter if you want to get in contact with me. That being said, thank you so much for tuning into Unqualified Analysis. As always, I have no clue what I'm talking about. One thing I learned this week, though, Jimmy Carter did die last week, gone far too soon at the young age of 100 years old. His obituary was written back in 2017 when he was 93. Pretty reasonable time to write an obituary when you're 93 years old. He lived so long that he outlived not one, but two of the writers of said obituary. Hey, rest in peace, man. Rest in peace, man. Taken far too soon. As one person said on Twitter, this is why I always tell people you have to check your powders, because obviously we know the boy Jimmy Carter was partying until the very last minute. That being said, I'm going to edit this thing a little bit. Not going to upload it just yet because I'm waiting on some Black Monday headlines. We'll see if it all shapes out that way. But I will talk to y'all on Thursday. See ya. Stay safe. Stay warm. Hopefully I can dig my car out here at some point. But I will talk to you then. Deuces.